Hello mappers, non-mappers, and other interested parties. Today we'll be doing a similar development video, but instead of a level design section, we will be talking about a certain element in Oilchange, of which I've been asked about a lot, and that is the cars. You know, how we created them, how we got them to look so smooth, all of the above, and furthermore. Alright, and to start off with, let's go into Hammer. Alright, so now we are inside Hammer, the tool used to create TF2 maps, if you are not aware. And for this, we'll be making one very particular type of entity, a function track train. Now, I'm going to try to create this from scratch. First of all, you will probably want a model to base this around. And this needs to be specifically a prop dynamic. My lord. A prop dynamic. This is any and all models. I'll be going with the Chieftain car model, again made by FGD5. Now this needs to be a dynamic model because those are the only type with which you can move around, right? These use a little more processing power. I think I'm saying this correctly, but they are very much worth it when you use them in dynamic situations. Thus the name. Alright, so to start us off, we have a prop dynamic with the model, right? And now we're going to have to create the actual track train itself. So we're going to make a box loosely the size of the car, so the height and width, right? We're going to press Ctrl T, turn this into a func track train, and that's it. No, I'm kidding, there's a little more to it. So, first things first, we're going to take this prop dynamic and we're going to parent it to this track train. And to do that, we actually need to name the track train. So I'll call this the car example. We'll take this dynamic model, we'll find its parent. You can either write in the car example, or you can use this picker tool and just tap on the entity and it'll do the same. So now this model is parented to this box here, so wherever the box will go, the car will follow. Something else to note with track trains in particular is that they need to be specifically facing to the east. And in this case, this would be the east, right? North, east, southwest. Is that correct? Yes. So this is the east. So the front of the car needs to point to the east. That no matter where you place it in the world, whatever is facing this direction will be the front. I've seen lots of maps where they just create the train model or the car model and they have it turned any which way, and when it goes onto the path, it somehow turns 90 degrees. So it would actually be moving this way along the path track. It's just a little quirky part of Source. Alright, so now we have the block made and the car that goes with it. And if you'll notice, with my true cars here, I've actually shaped it loosely to the model of the car as best as I could. I do this because these cars, especially in my map, are actually inside the level, and I wanted to allow players to ride on the car. So I made it around the shape of the car, and I checked this flag, rideable train, which is what they use for the payload carts as well. And now anytime a player jumps on it, they'll be taken on for a ride. Another thing of note, of course, is that we have this chain texture on the box. Now some people go with no drop. Personally, I don't think that's a very wise move, because when you do shape the func track train to fit with the shape of the car, you can't be completely sure if it truly fits the shape. So I usually do this great texture because it's somewhat translucent, and you can go in here, go to the rendering mode. It's usually selected as normal. You can go all the way down to don't render. Now in Hammer, we'll always still be able to see it, but once you load it into the game, it'll become completely invisible and you'll only see the car by itself. Now, once we have it shaped, we can change a few of these properties, right? Most importantly, we'll have to, let's see, where is the path track? You'll have to create a path track entity. Now these are pretty simple to make. You just place down your entity, name it a path track, bam, and then I usually just hold shift, drag it, and it already creates the connection between the two. Of course, you can always go in and manually type in the name of this, which is path 45, as the next path track, but it's much easier to just shift and drag. Keep it at face direction of motion so that the car goes in the direction that it is moving. Makes sense. And so for this example, I just created a quick circle track, and we're gonna have this track train just follow. So first stop target, we're gonna set it to this guy, which I named path prime, and it will, once the map loads in, this will immediately teleport to here and should immediately start moving, right? Because we have the initial speed set to 100. Now for my example piece here, I actually have it set to 300 because that's a more, how do you say, a more realistic speed. It would be quite boring otherwise. You can change the speed, you can change the velocity changes, so if you want it to slow down, you can have the path tracks actually change the speed of the track train, and this will either be instantaneously or you can make it blend, right? Change angles near path tracks, that's correct. I gave it a move sound. You can give it a sound that it will make when it starts, when it stops, when it's moving, and this will just save you from having to create a completely separate sound entity just to attach, which you can do. You can make an ambient generic, set any sound, and parent that as well to the car, and the sound will follow suit. So let's take a look at what the car looks like with only the speed changed and the sound changed. So I've changed no other properties. So, as you can see here, we have the car, we have the move sound going, and it does go in a circle, but it's very jittery. It turns exactly when it hits the path track instead of slowly and smoothly turning as it goes around. But there is a remedy for this, and this is something that was taught to me by Brokkhaus, another mapper most famous for King of the Hill Rotunda, as well as Control Point Stormbreaker, which is another very cool map that is on the workshop at the moment. And as you can tell, Brokkhaus also has quite the experience with vehicles. He's the train master, you could say, the track train master. So he taught me a method that is used in pretty much any vehicle that turns, and that is the origin and the distance between wheels. In most cases, say you have a train. You have a train model. Let's put in a train model. Engineer. Nope. Engine. Nope. Train. All right, good. We'll just go with one of these custom trains, I suppose. So when you have one of these trains, what you had to do originally is you would go in and you'd get the origin, which was this key right here, and you'd move it to where the wheels are. I don't know if you can see that, but here are the back wheels. And then you'd go into the track train, and you would set the distance between the wheels to the distance from the back wheel to the front wheel. So in this car, I've already moved the origin. Maybe I'll move it back here so you get the idea. You would take the origin, which is this ball right here. I think you can see it right there, this little blue ball. And you move it to the back wheels. Let's see, the back wheels are about there. And then you take, I usually just use the block tool, and I measure out the distance from the back wheels to the front wheels. And it says exactly 152 hammer units. So I went to this guy, this car over here, set the origin to the back wheels, and set the distance between the wheels to 152. And that's all I did. No other changes. And as you can see, this guy turns much smoother. It's a little bit boring, it's just a circle, but the car definitely looks far more realistic with the distance between the wheels specified. But using this, there was a trick that Brock told me about. Imagine you have the origin of the back wheel set, but you decide to set the distance past the front wheels. So that's exactly what we did for this car here. This car has almost all the same properties, except instead of 152, we set the distance to 500. So now the hammer, or the game, thinks that the back wheel is here, but the front wheel is all the way over here. So instead of turning like this, it will turn, maybe I can grab the rotation point, it will turn closer to like this. Though that's not the best example. I think it's better if I just show you what it looks like in the game. But one more property to point out is this wonderful property that's already built into the game called bank angle on turns. And this was perfect for making the cars feel a bit more realistic. Now, I put it to a pretty excessive amount, 15, but this is just the angle in, I believe, degrees, it should say here. Something like that. It's the angle in degrees in which the car will turn at the apex, will pivot, I guess, will rotate at the apex of its turn. So if we just really quickly go back to the map, you can see, as I said, a little bit ridiculous, but the car now has a bit of a drift going on, and unfortunately, since the car is always turning, it's constantly in this bank position, in the maximal bank position. But this was really getting us somewhere. So we decided to add it all together, and of course the race course on Oilchange is a little more complicated than just a circle. So at the end of this test map here, we can see the full race course. Now I did a couple of interesting things with this race course. Of course we have the brushes of the course itself that we follow. But how I did this in Oilchange to make it look a little more curvaceous and natural is I have these displacements under it that are this kind of blend texture, right? And so I had the displacements go up just a little bit. Say if I have it down here, you can see where the path, the block starts. But if I just come up above, it smoothens it out, and then I of course painted it. It originally looked like this, but now I paint it with the same texture as the road, and it all blends seamlessly into this very natural, round-looking race course. Now another thing to keep it as smooth as possible is the path tracks. There are far more. Especially for the turns, I could do even more of these. I think in Oilchange there's pretty much 3 separate curved path tracks for every one of these, and so the car turns far more smoothly than if there were about half of these. Like say I were to delete all of every other one, it would go straight. It would just not be even close to as smooth as it is in the level. Now looking at the car itself, I've added a few things. First off, I've increased the speed so that it looks a little more exciting. I've set the distance even higher because I wanted to have a more dramatic drift, especially at these more intense close corner curves. But I've also added a few more entities that I've attached to the tracktrain. First off, we have the trigger hurt at the front, so that anyone standing in front of the car is hit with this trigger hurt. Now these are very simple to make. You just use this trigger texture, make a box, Control T again to make the entity, make a trigger hurt, set the damage to something quite high so that even Uber cannot withstand it. Then for this I just set it to the train kill icon until we have a custom version. So this at least looks somewhat like you've been run over. Another thing, of course, was to again parent this to the car. So now it will fully follow this track train just like the car does, and it will stay in the front for the whole duration of the race, right? One other thing is I have these beautiful particles. Now, unfortunately, these are not stock. These were custom made by the wonderful Pine Wobble, and all they really are, let me turn the particles on, are these dust clouds that just stay in one place. But of course, since the car is moving, it looks like the dust is lingering behind them, right? Because that's how the particles work. They kind of linger. Of course, in the map itself, it looks like it's just blowing a giant dust cloud upwards, but when it's moving, it looks correct. One other thing I added was a info observer point, and this is of course the spectator camera. Again, parented, I made it a welcome point so that it was the first camera when you click on spectator, and so this will as well, at this angle, consistently follow the car. So with all of that put together, let's see how it looks. And I think it looks pretty cool. Now, I over-exaggerated the drift a little bit, so it kind of looks like it's floating. Honestly, if I were to suggest something to someone making one of these cars, I would try to study the way cars move. Like this example I did in a few minutes, just creating the path tracks, setting the bank rate, all of the above. So in some areas it really just kind of floats and suddenly zips ahead with no real meaning. In Oilchange we focused on making it much more realistic, but it still looks pretty goddamn cool, I would say, especially this drift. I love when it does the almost full 180 and it's as far out as it can go. But of course for Oilchange we did not stop there. So in the alpha versions of the map, that was pretty much all there was to it. Fully stock, except for the car model, of course, and the particles. But we had a track train with a trigger hurt and a welcome point attached to it, and this car. A few problems, though, is it didn't look too realistic because, first off, the car didn't have any movement of its own. The wheels didn't turn. They didn't rotate, but they also didn't turn in the direction that the car was trying to go, right? As well as the car didn't shake, so it was very unrealistic, right? So how we got around this, we went through a couple of ideas. At one point, we tried the V-scripting method. Now this was back when V-scripting was still in its toddler days. It wasn't it wasn't as common as we see nowadays. And it did work. Like, this is totally a method that that can benefit people. I would suggest it if you have the opportunity to V-script. We more or less we took the script from, I think, the buggies. We, as in a scripter that we had tried out for us. And they had the wheels turn just like the buggy did and rotate based off where the path tracks were. It was actually quite well done. We also had a suspension system added in. That was another thing we wanted for realism. And it all worked well, but it just wasn't the option that we went with. I still recommend it for other people who have the choice, but we tried a different method, fully dependent on the model itself. Now FGD, our modeler, went in and he created these beautiful cars. One moment, the Hudson. Nope, that's not what it's called. The Racecar? Yes, the Racecar Hornet. Gorgeous model, by the way, and some fantastic advertisements done by the one and only Square. And we came to a kind of creative solution. As the car moves along the path tracks, it plays an animation. Let me set this to a dynamic. Plays an animation where it stays completely still, but follows the direction of the car. So let me go in. I believe the name of the sequence is simply race. Wonderful. And we're going to set the default animation to race. And as you can see, it just kind of jogs in place. So there's some suspension, the wheels turn, they spin, all of the above. Worked wonderfully. And as it kind of drifted around the course, it looked about as realistic as we could get it. And I'll show that right now. Oh wait, sorry, I almost forgot. One more thing to show off. Remember, we set up that spectator camera. So if I go, not blue, not red, not random, but to the spectator, we can follow the car as it goes around the course, which is just awesome. We have the same system set up for the cars in Oilchange. Of course, the cars in Oilchange, because we have the animation already with the suspension built in, we did not need to have the bank anymore. We did not use the bank property, so the camera doesn't move around as much, which was a problem because some people would have the camera stuck in the odd position of the camera. It's just some usual source jank. There's not much to do about it. Just try to keep your camera as straight as possible. Alright, now we go to Oilchange. And here we are. The most recent version of Oilchange. Not the final, of course. We do plan to change these sounds to not just be the Half-Life sounds. But there's much in the works. If I go and join a team, turn off the waiting for players, you can see how the cars move around, and especially how they drift around this turn right here. Wonderful. That being said, again, this is not the final version. I may update this video once we create the final version, but we plan to change the animation so that it turns inward just slightly more to really keep with that drifting potential. You know, just like that one movie that we won't talk about. So yeah, a wonderfully done animation by FGD, wonderfully done particles by Pine Wobble, but in reality, a lot of this can be done in stock Team Fortress with many other vehicles. The wheel distance property is very useful, especially if you want to make, say, a full train with all the cars and it has to turn a corner. If it's just going straight, you can have a single track train because it doesn't need any of its properties changed. But if you're making a full subway car or a full train with all of the different cargo holders behind it, flatbeds, there we go, the flat cars behind it, you need to make a separate track train for each flatbed so that it can change at its own pace instead of the whole train rotating around the path track as it turns the corner. But again, make sure that you set the wheels to the right, to the wheels of the model. So put the origin in the back wheels and then set the distance. For a train, you definitely don't want it to drift, so make sure you get that accurate. And I think that's all I have to say about these cars. They were really fun to make. I have big thanks to Brock. He was really a huge help in getting this idea off the ground. And try them for yourselves, honestly. I would love to see more dynamic maps that make use of the entities that we have at our disposal. So with that, I say happy mapping, or if you're not a mapper, enjoy whatever next video it is you're going to explore, and have a good one.
Spy Pyro, watch out.